Hi guys, today I'm going to show you 5 things I look for when I'm buying a used car to flip for profit. My name is Jeremy, this is Region Automotive, and let's get to work. So before we get started, I'll say that this video is strictly for information purposes only. It's up to you and your mechanical confidence and skills, I guess. When you assess a car, if you want to buy it, don't buy a car strictly off the advice I'm giving you. This is just stuff that I've learned over the years that I personally look for when I look at used cars. With that being said as well, you can use this as a guide if you're buying a used car for yourself, not just buying a car to flip. And last, I'd say if you don't feel comfortable enough like inspecting a used car yourself on site, I would highly recommend taking it for mechanical inspection before you buy the car. Again, this is what I do when I buy cheaper cars, but like if I buy more expensive, especially higher end cars like, European Volkswagens, BMWs, whatever, even, myself, I've been working on cars for close to 15 years now, but I still take it to a shop for a second opinion before I pull the trigger on the car. Okay, so the first thing that I look for when I'm buying a used car is I assess the seller and I assess the situation. What do I mean by that? Assessing the seller. So it starts with the initial contact. When you message the seller, how responsive are they on Facebook, Kijiji, Craigslist, whatever you're using to buy the car. Assess the ad, like how do the photos look in the ad? Do they clean the car? Are the photos half decent? Do they have information on it? What's their response time? Is it easy to make a plan with them? Ask a few questions about the car. Do they respond on time? Do they know about the car? Are they short with you and they don't want to give you the time of day? Then that's fine. Don't give them the time of day buying their car. So that's just when you're online. My first piece of advice is assessing the seller. I've messaged many people who send me reports or whatever emails to send to their cousin or their sister, or there's guys who just aren't interested in responding back to me. The ad just doesn't look great. You can just tell they don't represent the car well. So that's probably going to tell you quite a bit about the car before you even go look at it. With that being said too, again, like I said, when you assess a seller, where are you meeting? Like if you meet at public places, that's fine. I don't love like meeting at a gas station or whatever like that. Like normally I prefer meeting at the person's house because that kind of gives you a level of trust, but I get why people want to meet at public places, especially nowadays. So if you meet at a public place, just kind of be, have your senses heightened. Like when you show up, do they seem like an honest person, or do they, seem like a shady person? They roll up in the car with loud music and smoke blowing out the windows or whatever, and they just don't care. Or do they just seem like an honest person that doesn't want to meet at their house? So that's fine. And I'll talk to you a little bit more what I mean by assess the situation. So again, like where are you meeting? I've had situations, I can think of like one specific Chevy Cobalt. It looked way too clean in the photos and the price was way too cheap for how clean it could have looked. So me being naive and always wanting the deal, for one, is really hard to communicate with the seller. They they had 4, 5, 6 hour response times, and they managed to give me an address to go look at the car. I go look at the car. It's behind a body shop on a shady side of town. There's no one there. So I get out and I just look at the car, and like all the windows are taped up, and there's like Bondo, it's like half painted. It's just a mess behind the body shop. So, and the guy wasn't there. So I didn't even bother texting him back. I just left. That's an example. What's another one that I can think of? Oh yeah, another time I went to a shadier part of town. I went to go look at a car, and originally I was messaging the one guy. His brother met me, which I was unaware of. And his brother, apparently this guy has 3, 4, 5 cars, whatever. His brother didn't even know which car he was showing me. So then I get in the car with him and we have to go drive to his shop. And it's, again, some shady mechanic shop. He gives me the keys and tries to be nice and polite. And, oh, hello, sir, here's the keys. And then we go back and look at the car. And by then I'm checked out of the deal. I pretty much left at that point. So that's what I mean by assess the seller and assess the situation is, I'm sure someone's dad has said it out there before. If it looks like shit, it smells like shit, it must be shit. So if the seller or the situation is just putting you off and giving you an uneasy feeling, I just recommend to not even go look at the car. Don't forget to subscribe, you guys, if you want more informational videos on how to flip cars. So once I determine that I feel comfortable with the seller and the situation, my second step, so yeah, that's the first step, assess the seller, the situation. My second step is to assess the exterior and undercarriage, and I'll show you what I mean by that. So another thing to keep in mind when you look at these vehicles is set your expectations. So like, what kind of vehicle are you looking at? How much does the vehicle cost? What's the comparables on the market? This is actually my personal vehicle. It's a 2004 GMC Yukon. I haven't bought any projects recently, so I don't have a recent project. But this is a good example because it's a 19-year-old vehicle and I use it pretty well. So I'll just show you things that I would notice if I was going to look at this to buy. So again, I'm going to walk around the exterior. I'm going to check. One thing you want to check is all the body panels lined up. Again, this is my personal vehicle. I haven't washed it. If you go look at the vehicle and it's just dirty, then the seller hasn't taken the time to wash the vehicle to show it to you. So that shows you how much they care about the vehicle. So is it dirty? For me, again, if it's an older vehicle, if I kind of have like superficial surface rust like that, I don't really care that much. It's a 19-year-old vehicle. I live in a snowy climate, like that's inevitable. Walk around, I check, are all the body panels straight while I'm here? Look at the windshield. This one's cracked. I don't know if you can see that in camera or not, but again, these are just little notes you're keeping in your mind. What you're really trying to do is assess all the little things on the vehicle. Just a quick once over. If anything seems weird or out of place, just kind of note that in your mind. And you're just trying to get the big picture on the vehicle and the owner. So again, I checked the windshield. That's a little cracked down the middle. It hasn't bothered me for the 2 years I've had it. Probably won't bother most people, but if the windshield just like cracked, like up and down, left, right, like it clearly needs to be replaced and it hasn't been replaced, then that could give you an indication about how they maintain the rest of the vehicle. So again, body panels, those all look straight. Little bit of surface rust, that's not bad. Check the glass, open the door. Does it look like there's been any body work on the inside? The panels, try closing the door. Is everything lined up? Does it close smoothly? Again, mine has a bit of rust here. I personally tried to do a little backyard paint job to just make it look better for my sake a couple years ago, and obviously that hasn't aged well, so I'd be asking questions about that. But again, that's up to you. If the rest of the vehicle is looks straight and it looks like it's been maintained, then that rust might not bug you. Same thing here. I personally damaged this and underneath there, so I'd be asking the seller questions about that damage. If you look under my rocker panel, I have a bit of rust there. Again, I'm not trying to hide anything, but the rest of the rocker panel is pretty good, so these are things I'm looking at. I usually run my hand over that rocker panel when I'm looking at the vehicle. And then while we're here, check out all 4 tires. Are they the same make, same model of tire? How's the tread look? Run your hand over the full width of the tread. If it has bad alignment, sometimes the inner part to the tire is worn or the outer part. Check the tread depth, look for cracks in the tread. And then most tires will have a date code. That's not a horrible thing to look at. So usually it's in like a little oval there, and it's 4 digits. The first 2 digits are the week of the year is manufactured, and the second 2 digits are the year. So these tires were manufactured in the 24th week of 2017. So I'm filming this in 2024, so these are coming up on 7 years old. So again, that's kind of right at the recommended lifespan of tires. Just assess the tire. This one's actually not dry rotted or cracked too bad. So obviously I'm not going to replace it, but other than that, the tire actually looks to be in pretty good shape, pretty good condition. Again, walk around, look at all the bumper. Is it falling off? Just kind of pull on the panels, just see if anything's loosely affixed to the vehicle. All the panels look relatively straight on this one. Open the door. I like to look inside of the door jambs again and just check for any body work that might have been done on the vehicle. This one hasn't had any. Close the door. Is it aligned? Does it close? Does the latch work properly? Check this side. Yeah, so just walking around, and again, it's a 19-year-old vehicle in a snowy climate, so I got rust, but you know, I'm not trying to hide anything. Make sure the seller's not trying to hide anything, and it's up to you if the body rust bugs you or not. So yeah, I walk around, all the doors are good. The body is relatively clean, relatively straight for a 19-year-old vehicle, minus my off-road light here that's come off. So next we're going to take a look at the undercarriage, which I'm looping into the exterior. So the first thing I do is look under the rear of the car. And what I'm looking for, again, especially if you're buying and selling these things for profit, you're just doing a quick glimpse, a quick once over of the car. Again, you want to kind of get the full picture of the car. I take a look at the car, look at the shock. I see if it's leaking, if it's rusted out. You can see a bit of the rear frame rail there. It has dust and surface rust on, but actually this frame is in pretty good shape. There's no, actual rust penetration. And then I look at if it's a rear wheel drive, you look at the rear end, check the diff, see if that's leaking. Check suspension bushings, just see if anything's cracked, dry rotted, broken, out of order. Again, we're just really looking for any abnormalities here. We're not doing a thorough inspection of the car. We're just kind of giving it a once over and just getting the full picture of the car. So now I'm on the side of the car. This is a body on frame. So I'm looking at the frame really for any rust or damage. And again, this one looks pretty clean. Look at the mounting points for the shocks. If it's a unibody car where the frame is integrated, you'll see kind of like a reinforced part of the unibody that runs along the car. You'll be inspecting that instead of the frame. So I crawl under the middle here. And again, I usually go on both sides. I run along the face of this frame, and then I'll look underneath, like the drive shaft. Is it out of place? Is the exhaust rusted? Is it falling down? The gas tank. And then this one you can't see as well, but I normally also just run my eyes along the back side of the frame on the other side. I would repeat for both sides. So now I'm at the front of the truck. Again, just stick your head over there. Look at the suspension. There's a shock there. This has a torsion bar, so there's no spring, but again, I'm really just looking for rusted, broken pieces. I'm checking, just take a quick look at the rubber, make sure none of the rubber is, falling apart or split, just everything's in place. Yes, it looks used, but everything's in place. It's not broken. That's the rubber boots on your CV axle. Last thing I do is crawl under the front end. You kind of get a better look of all the suspension. I actually just noticed this would be something that you would note. That's the sway bar end link. It looks like the rubber is kind of starting to fall apart there, so that's something to note while you're looking at the vehicle. And again, just looking at the CV axle, the boots all look good. Look for leaks around any of your mechanical running gear, the engine, the differential, the transmission. Just look for any leaks. Is there any drops on the ground? Is the exhaust rusted? Is it falling down? So you've completed your exterior and chassis inspection. You're happy. Next thing I like to do is go right under the engine bay. So that's my third thing that I look out for when I go look at used vehicles, especially to buy and sell for profit. So yeah, we're looking at the engine bay. Is the car warm? And if it is, why? Ask. If you're meeting at a public place, sure, that actually could be a reason sometimes why people want to meet at public places, is to warm up the car before they get to you. So again, just kind of assess the seller and why they want to meet there. And if the car is warm, I always ask the seller why it's warm. And then yeah, so same thing. Mine's pretty muddy actually, but I'm just looking at, my rubber hoses. I might grab a couple coolant hoses, my plugs, make sure everything's in order. There's no broken plugs. It's really common for all vehicles to leak at the valve covers, just at the top there. So I'm looking for oil leaks at the top. Is there any liquids? Is there any oil around the intake there? Inspect, just take a quick look at the radiator hoses. Accessories on this side. Look at your front drive. Take a quick look at the belt. Again, we're just trying to get the full picture here, really, of how the vehicle's been taken care of. Like if I've seen vehicles that have not been taken care of, you see just leaks everywhere and random frayed wires, and you've had backyard mechanics working on it, just not put together properly. Like, is everything there? Does it look like everything's in place? And then the most obvious thing you want to do is check your fluids. So check your oil. You got to make sure your oil is in between the different cars will have different marks to indicate the level, but make sure it's in between some sort of marks, and just take a look at the oil. I've changed mine recently, so it's pretty clean there, but take a look at it. Is it black? Does it smell burnt? If it's an automatic, look for the dipstick for an automatic trans. And there actually is a, normally for automatic transmissions, there's a procedure to check the fluid while it's in park, but I still like to pull it out and just see if fluid registers on the dipstick. For transmissions, it's especially important to look at the color of the fluid. It should be red, and then smell it. If it smells burnt, that means you have burnt clutches, so stay away. And then last fluid I personally like to check is the cooling system. Again, it may vary vehicle by vehicle. If you have an overflow tank, yeah, I was actually just going to say, be careful with the cooling system, especially if the vehicle's warm. Yeah, never open a cooling system when it's hot. Sometimes you have a cap right on top of the radiator. Never open that when that's hot. If you have an expansion tank, it's not as serious, but still, if it tells you not to open one hot, don't open one hot. If the vehicle's warm, or if you don't feel comfortable checking the cooling system, then just make sure to pay special attention to your vehicle temp while you're driving it. But what I look for when I check the cooling system, for one, how's the coolant level? Check your bottle. Yeah, my level's on the side there. Shake the bottle, make sure there's actually coolant in it. If there's no coolant in it, that could be a problem. I open it up. Again, depending on the system and how close the coolant is to the cap, check the bottom of the cap to see there's no like milkshake, which is head gasket, or sometimes you can get, if it has like an internal transmission cooler, sometimes it mixes. So just make sure there's no weird, gunky, sludgy stuff on the bottom of the cap. I like to check inside. Can't really see the color there, but kind of. Just check the condition of the coolant. Like if it's dirty and speckled, that's okay. But again, if it looks like there's oil mixed in it, then that's a problem. So once you've checked everything, hopefully the vehicle's cold. Start up the engine. Listen for, especially on initial start, I like to listen for any knocks or any rattles. I'll usually like literally put my head right there, my ear there. I'll listen for any internal engine noises. And then it's a good time to check your belt drive if you hear any belt squeal or pulley noises. You can also open your oil cap, put the cap on it. It shouldn't be excessively pressure. Like you might see a little bit of smoke or something coming out of there, especially when it's warm. But like if there's like lots of pressure and you can barely put your hand on there and it's spitting oil out, then you have an issue with your PCV system. Another thing I like to check, again, be very, very careful with the cooling system. Do this at your own discretion. Make sure you're fully confident opening a cooling system while the vehicle's running. But I like to open the coolant cap, put the cap on, and see if there's any head gasket pressure that wants to blow that cap off. Or just look inside to see if there's, if it's creating a bunch of bubbles, a bunch of excess pressure, it looks like there's a bunch of oil being spat into there, then you probably have head gasket issues. It is normal to see a little bit of coolant circulating, that's a water pump circulating, but again, anything that's abnormal or seems excessive, then that's probably an issue. Okay, so you've done the inspection of the engine bay and you're happy with that. What number are we on here? 1, 2, 3. The fourth thing I like to look for when I look at used cars for profit is the interior. The rule of thumb that I like to use when I buy and sell vehicles is if I wouldn't buy the vehicle for myself or for someone I know, then I just don't buy the vehicle. Just simple as that. There's lots of vehicles out there. If you don't like the vehicle, if something's putting you off, if you hear like a sound and you're like, oh, maybe I could warm it up and get away with it, just don't be part of that game. Like, again, I personally, I really enjoy working on vehicles. I enjoy helping people out with vehicles. I enjoy finding good vehicles, conditioning it and selling it and getting paid for my time. So that's kind of a rule I've made over the past couple of years, is if I wouldn't buy the vehicle for myself or for someone I know, then I just don't buy it. So with that being said, I'm putting myself in the shoes of my potential buyer, and they're going to see everything I see. You know, I would, like, for this specific vehicle, obviously I would clean it up, but like as far as damage goes, so that to me is acceptable. That's a little bit of damage, a little bit of wear. That's actually not bad for GMs of this generation. So just check your seats. Do they have, you know, big rips, tears, cigarette burns? Do they smell? Does it smell inside the interior? Same thing with your door panels. I've seen like speaker covers missing, which is, again, just weird little red flags. I've seen like just holes in the panels. Sometimes they're not clipped on properly. Your switches, sometimes the tabs break on your switches. While you're here, it's not a bad idea to check the bottoms of the doors for rust. That's a common spot for vehicles to rust. Carpets, does it have floor mats? Are they all there? Is the carpet damaged under the pedals? Is it stained excessively? Is there dog hair everywhere? It takes a long time to detail dog hair. Same story for the rear. Mind my stuff in here. Seats, you know, what kind of condition are they in? Carpets, floor mats, just kind of look at it. Like, you've been in lots of vehicles. You've been in your parents' vehicles, your friends' vehicles. When you open the vehicle, when you get in the vehicle, what's your first impression? And that's what we're looking for here, is first impression. Yeah, so again, open all the doors, check all the seats, check all your panels, bottom of the doors. I checked my hatch earlier. If it has fancy features, always test the features. So this has the button to open the glass. Make sure that works. Again, mind all my camping stuff back there, but yeah, we're just looking, do they use it as a work vehicle? Is there, you know, material and cement and wood and saws or mechanics? If it's just like a greasy used vehicle, then I probably wouldn't buy it for a driver, so I'm not going to buy it to sell to someone. So that would be enough for me to go look at a different vehicle. And then another thing that I can't stress enough is to play with all the buttons and test all the electronics. So again, you don't have to go crazy, or I don't go crazy and move the seat fully forward, fully back. I just make sure, just quick, yeah, my switch works, my motor works, good. Play with the lights, signals. Again, especially if you're buying a vehicle to flip, like, you're always going to have little things. So if like a light bulb's out or whatever, like, I'm not too concerned about that. I just want to get a general story of the overall condition and maintenance of the vehicle. Once you're in the vehicle, again, I like to check all the electronics, and that includes the climate control. So make sure your fans work, turn it off, turn it on, maybe turn it on, turn it all the way up, check your heat. If it has AC, turn it all the way down, check your AC, check your radio, but turn that off because we'll want that off for later. All the power windows, just go through those quickly. Everything's all good. This says rear climate, so I just flick that on. Yeah, it works. Flick it off. Check your lights again, signals, just double check all that works. And then we actually notice our first problem inside the vehicle is the engine light is on. So it's not a bad idea to have a little code reader with you to scan that engine light. Since this is my vehicle, I know that's on, I know what that's about. But again, if you're looking at the vehicle, especially if the seller didn't disclose the engine light, that's a bit of a flag. So scan it, see what it's for, and you can do a quick search online, just see if it's a big deal or not. And usually I find with engine lights, you know, they'll go on for lots of sensors or whatever, but generally you can tell if it's a big deal. For one, if it's flashing, that's a problem. And for two, is just how does the car run and drive? If it runs and drives poor and the engine light's on, then you probably got some issues. Okay, so my last step when I look at used vehicles to buy and sell is test drive. Take them for a test drive. Again, if everything else checked out, the body, or first the seller, the situation, it doesn't seem too sketchy, seems everything kind of checks out. The body, for me, again, when I'm looking at these older cars, as long as there's no like absolute like rust holes, like I really don't like on trucks, like for example, if the rust is going up the cab corner, like up into the cab, like, I mean, like this thing, the rust I showed you, that's probably the line that I would personally want for body rust. But as I showed you the undercarriage, the frame is really clean and all the mechanical in this thing's pretty clean. So that would still keep me in it. And then we went over the engine bay, and again, I've kept everything like as dirty, but like everything mechanically was good. It sounds good. Check the interior. Again, it's old used truck, but all the, you know, seats are in half decent condition. The carpet's all there. It doesn't stink. Checked all the electronics, that works. So if you're happy with all of that, then we go for the test drive. So before you even start your test drive, especially if it's an automatic vehicle, one thing I like to do is just kind of cycle it through the gears and just see how it shifts into the gears. I wouldn't do this too quick because especially older automatic transmissions, they don't love being shifted real quick up and down into the gears. So it may seem like it shifts into gears harshly, but what I do is just reverse. That's good. Goes down to neutral. Drive's a big one. It doesn't clunk and engage. It goes into drive smooth. Third, second, first. And I'll go up to park, and I'll probably do it like once more. Just nice slow shift to reverse. Just move a little bit, make sure it's engaging. That's good. Neutral, again, down to drive. That's a big one. I'm happy with how the gears shift stationary. So just go for a test drive. Again, if you can, have the radio off. I'm going to turn the HVAC off, have all background noises off, because right now we're trying to listen to the mechanical of the car. For me personally, I don't like to beg the crap out of the car. Like I've had actually people test drive my cars too, which I didn't like. It just, you know, it's cold or whatever. And again, like old automatic cars, the automatic transmissions, they don't love being begged on. Like, we've all driven cars before. We all know what automatic transmissions feel like. You kind of have to drive them smoothly, and then they'll feel smooth. Like, again, if you just give it gas and you let off, and you give it gas and you let off, and it shifts up and it shifts down, like no older automatic transmission likes that. So like for me personally, when I go for a test drive for a vehicle, I just drive it like I would normally. So, you know, right now I'm just light on the gas. Like maybe if you go onto the highway or something, like accelerate a little bit. But usually my experience, if there's any issues with the mechanical, it will show itself whether you drive the car hard or not. So I'm just going for a drive. All the sounds are off. I'm listening for any noises. I also, like I said, with automatic transmissions, is I want to make sure it shifts smoothly. So if you can, get up to like city speeds at least, so it can get up into the higher gears. Roll down the windows. Listen for any suspension noise. When you come up to stop, you know, brake. Does the wheel judder back and forth? Is there any grinding noise outside of the car? Again, we've all driven cars before, so I would say most people would be able to tell the difference between a car that is, you know, mechanically has issues, or a car that drives well. So yeah, like I said, just take it for a drive. I'm happy with how the transmission engages. It's shifting smoothly. It's not giving me any indication that it's a bad transmission. The brakes, when we stopped there, it was quiet. There's no grinding. The wheel wasn't juddering. If you have the windows down and you're in the neighborhood, just kind of turn back and forth a little bit to load up the suspension. We're going to listen for any clunks or rattles from the suspension. The steering, is your steering wheel straight? Does the vehicle drive straight? And then another thing to listen for is humming. So humming noises, generally speaking, is two things. Either wheel bearings. Recently, I've actually had a few cars where I could just hear a loud rhythmic hum when I'm in the car and I had to replace the wheel bearing. Or I've also had one where when we're inspecting the tires earlier, there's cupping on the tires, and that showed quite a bit when you're driving. You could hear almost like as a wheel bearing noise. So listen for humming, squeaks, rattles. it should relatively be a quiet, smooth driving car. And again, if there's a little bit of like, you know, suspension kind of rattling, or if there's a bit of brakes, especially if you're flipping a car, you're looking for a deal, so it may need a bit of work. For me personally, nowadays I look for cars that just kind of need maintenance work. So you know, if you're flipping cars, like, you shouldn't be scared of doing a brake job, some grinding brakes, or if your suspension's making a little bit of rattling. Like I said, you're just kind of keeping notes. So it should be a thing here or there, but yeah, if you drive the car and the transmission's acting all funky, or the engine's not accelerating properly or smoothly, yeah, like the whole suspension system, the car is leaning, it's pulling to the left, whatever. Like, again, we've all driven cars, and again, I always ask myself, does this car drive smooth? Would I buy it and fix it up and drive it myself? If the answer is no, then I just give the keys back and go look at a different car. With an automatic transmission, it's also not bad to see how it reacts. Say if you're rolling at city speeds here, just kind of get into it a little bit and just see how it downshifts. Let off, it should upshift again, just to make sure, you know, the transmission is like the shifting and the electronics work well, and it's reading the speed, and it's able to shift in the right gear in the situation. All right, guys, that's my video on the 5 things. I know there's a lot of information in there. Hopefully you're able to get some sort of insight or knowledge when you look for cars to flip or used cars in general. So that's my video on 5 things that I like to look for when I look at either a used car for myself, or a car to flip. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and have a good day.